This is Sarah in Austin, Texas, who says, "Why not just use an intumescent paint on regular plywood after installation?" And my guess is she's referring to, like, a lot of times when we'll do spray foam in an attic, we'll use an intumescent paint on top of that spray foam, and that would meet the ICCES report showing, hey, this doesn't meet the requirement unless you use this intumescent paint on top. Will you answer that question for
Yeah,
us?
sure. Hey, Sarah, that's a great question. The reason for that is you got to get a really consistent layer on there, and that's really hard to do in the field. So factory applied, factory constructed, we can measure, and we have quality systems in place to make sure that we're putting the right amount of materials on and that we're getting it consistently across not just a panel but that whole assembly, which is something you're not going to be able to do really easily in the field. The other thing is, in the field, how do you measure that? How does a building inspector come in later and measure that dry film thickness that it's correct, right?
Right.
That's a real big problem. Where in the factory we have control over that. We have quality systems in place where we actually measure that on a continuous basis as we're making the product.
And my assumption would be, too, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but if you were to paint something on or spray it on, you'd be worried about, oh, what happens if a rainstorm happens, 2 weeks after you do that, because that might reduce its effectiveness out there, which also makes me question when I see some builders that are using pink FRT products. They seem like after a rainstorm, they're not as pink anymore. Whereas your product doesn't seem affected by exposure time, because you told us earlier you still have your warranty even after 6 months of exposure.
That's absolutely right. We actually did expose the product to the elements and test it afterwards to make sure that it still performs and still exceed the performance needs of the code. And some of the products out there that you see, if you see color change or physical changes in the product, you know that something has changed. So you would want to question as a homeowner when you want fire protection whether or not that protection is still there or in its full extent.
Right.